na, hey, hianana, hey, hianana, hey, hianana, oh, hey, yang, hey, hianana, hey, hianana, hey, hianana, hey, hianana, oh, hey, yang, yang.
Bienvenidos.
Welcome.
This is Learning with Lobos. I'm Paloma.
And I'm Lonnie, and we are education consultants from the Early Childhood Services Center.
And this is a UNM podcast for early childhood.
This is Season 2, Episode 3, bringing Navajo and Jicarilla Apache culture into the classroom.
Yes, and we have a special guest with us today, Stacie Barney, education consultant from our neck of the woods, the Early Childhood Services Center, the Albuquerque Hub. Stacie, welcome.
Yes, hello. Thank you for welcoming me, Lonnie and Paloma. My name is Stacie Barney. Yat a she Stacie Barney in she. Senjikinishle do be he bashichin. Torachini dashache nast ajitachini edashanella. Die kot out dine astanshle. Dungeon also.
Hey, I feel like a little bit of awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Stacie. So this topic is super important. We wanted to have, obviously we talk all the time about culture and the classroom, you know, but we really wanted to have the Native American perspective as well. Obviously, you're not going to have, you know, you have your perspective of your culture, but you can give us a little bit more information that I feel our teachers will find, you know, helpful and useful and
definitely.
make things intentional.
Yeah, and I saw that you brought a book, so can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is a book about a Navajo boy. His name is Dene Ashki Nishle. And so the Navajo boy, he introduces his parents, his family, and goes on to describe about his family traditions.
I love that.
In the 1940s of the last century. So,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when you bring this type of book to the classroom, for example, what exactly are you hoping to get out of it?
Yeah, so how I used it inside the classroom is getting to know a family at the beginning of a child's journey, educational journey. So, you know, the parents are looking, or the educators will look at how or who is in their family, parents, children, other siblings, and then they want to know a little bit more about, like, what do you do throughout the day? You know, who normally takes care of you, you know? So this is just a great book just to kind of ease that conversation in, kind of calm their nerves. And because I'm Navajo and Jicarilla Apache, it's great because when you open it, you know, I read it like, you know, this is my mom. And then I would say in Navajo, you know, the Shema, you know, and they're like, whoa, and it kind of twists, and I'm like, well, how do you say that in Spanish, you know? And so they...
Esto es mi mamá.
Yeah, there you go.
And in sign language...
Yeah, right. And then once those kids get comfortable and they're like, oh, okay. And how do you say brother, you know, and how do you say sister? And then at that point, it opens up that relationship to that building relationship with that child.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of, we're talking about culture in the classroom. Sometimes that seems really daunting. Like, oh, this is going to be a lot of pressure. This is going to be hard. But just having a conversation about families, that's really simple. That's also comes pretty naturally and probably happens in the classroom quite often.
Right.
So we can bring culture into the classroom in really simple, natural ways.
Right.
And I think that's part of, you know, the conversations we're going to have with you today, which is so exciting, right?
Yes.
100%, yes. And another thing I was going to say is teachers always also, or most of the time, they say, well, I have just Hispanic kids in the classroom.
Right.
But why not introduce more cultures? And then maybe there's an intimidation piece of it, you know, maybe not being able to say the right thing or pronounce things or go further or deeper into the topic.
And I think, though, you know, even that could be a barrier, is like, well, I have nothing but Hispanic families. But what have you done to make that connection from their home life into the classroom? And so, like, you know, this book, for instance, talks about like families and brothers and things like that. And so what the kids did that first 45 days in my classroom, a great strategy for educators is they drew the best they could of their parent on separate pages and put my mother. But not only we did that, but I Googled, like how to say my mother in Spanish. And then I'd put it in Navajo right underneath, and I'd put it in Jicarilla right underneath. And so the parents would come back like, oh, here's this. And then I had a little girl come back and she gave me a little card and she said, this is you. I drew you at home. And I was like, wow, what is this? What does this say? And she said, in Spanish, teacher means maestra. And I was like, that's what you were calling me all week. And, and I didn't know. And so picking up those little pieces here and there, going one step further with the kiddos that speak Spanish in your classroom, like do activities that are not, fixed to a paper, think outside the box, if you're reading other books out there, try to go simple, like this one was very easy. My mother, my brother, my dad, my grandma, and then they drew it, themselves, which is a great strategy for educators also, because you want to know, how are they holding that pencil? Can they draw a circle? Do they need help with lines? It might not be a person right now, and then you build from there to the final one where you're like, let's draw your family again. What grew? What more pages did you add to your book for this year? So.
Oh, super cute.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think too that sometimes we might have one assumed culture in our classroom, like you said, very heavily on Hispanic, especially here in New Mexico. But it's important to let them look through the mirror and learn about themselves, as well as look through a window so they can learn about others. And sometimes even looking through that window helps them learn about themselves just as much. So I think that we shouldn't limit ourselves with, there's not a variety here, I shouldn't teach a variety. No, we should make sure they understand the world around them, and it might help them come back and understand themselves more. And even the teacher might understand herself or himself more, right? And so I think it's a benefit to have culture in the classroom to the best of our ability.
100%. I agree.
Yeah.
So, Stacie, do you think this would be a good time for questions in the field?
Oh, yes, of course.
Ooh.
This feels heavy today. We have 3 questions.
Deeper today.
Yeah.
I'm excited. So we have 3 questions here. Okay. Katie is asking, I am an infant teacher and I want to bring culture and language into the classroom, but I don't know how to do it with this age group.
Yeah. So a few strategies that you can do with infant and toddlers inside your classroom. So I am Navajo and Jicarilla Apache, like I shared before. And so keep it simple. With infants and tots, you can do a lot of talking with them. And so one strategy that you can do with them is, like, let's say they're on the changing table, right? You're having those conversations with them and you're talking about their legs and things like that. And you can tell them, like, well, in the Navajo culture, they have a stretch called the beauty way, which we'll demonstrate later on towards the end of this episode. And as you're stretching the little baby on the changing table, or maybe on their play mat, or just as they're waking up, you can say, oh, I give thanks to beauty all above me, below me. So you're stretching their arms out, and the babies and toddlers will naturally do it. They'll naturally strengthen their arms, and then you pull out their legs and then pull out their arms sideways. And then when you do that, you can massage their arms, and then you can count to them in other languages. So what was really interesting is it's not difficult or challenging to hit the number 5 for infants and tots. So in Navajo, you would say you can have it recording. There's little YouTube videos for Navajo language.
That's awesome.
And you can just, play the numbers or the letter of the alphabet in Navajo, which is really cool because we have technology on our hands.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of teachers have, they're moving throughout the day. They can just be like, oh, here's my YouTube video for Navajo numbers. Maybe today is French Day. You can go along with like their menu you have. So play with what you have, and that's the numbers inside the classroom through singing. Yes, singing. Beautiful thing about Navajo people is we love doing things in the cadence of 4 because it represents our 4 directions, and 4 is like a sacred way of being with our directions and our thanks and praise. So
interesting.
So when you're doing like the songs, you can just repeat it 4 times. So, you know, if you're singing like a little like tune, it might be like, whoa, 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 Najoni, yeah. And you just repeat that 4 times. Whoa, 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 Najoni, yeah. And then as your teacher, because singing is one of your big things inside the classroom, it doesn't have to be that difficult going over to the we're changing you right
exactly.
now.
I was just going to say
4 times, right? Here's the wives, you know, and I mean, you can just make it fun. But the beautiful thing is no one's recording you in that moment.
Or judging. They're just listening.
They're just listening. Yes, they just want to hear your voice. And sometimes it helps soothe in when a baby is inside the womb. The baby doesn't hear like pitches, but they hear a vibration. And so when you're having a kiddo, like maybe throwing fits or crying, sometimes a good hug with that infant and Todd, and sometimes it's just a like a good hum, and you're just doing that 4 times around them, stroking their back, and usually a child is able to settle during that time.
And that's beautiful. We're using music, using language, you're using, you know, all these things. And we always say, because when we talk about infants and toddlers, that the strategy that you just said, I mean, anybody can do it, and the ages.
And it's probably already happening.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And maybe they don't know that there's that, you know, they're doing that, but it's happening. But when you have the intention and you have maybe the repetition and things like that, then you're adding a little bit more. So that's pretty amazing.
That's great.
And I think too, right there, like in your lesson plans, right, as educators are going through, how do you take or show that you're doing another culture inside the classroom? You can put it a part of your routine, your daily routine, you know, Navajo beauty waist stretch, Navajo massage, you know, after the diaper change, singing, humming a Navajo tune, you know, or a Jicarilla tune, you know, and so you can write those in on your lesson plans under like the modification adaptation piece. Yeah. That way it's there.
That's great. I think that's awesome. Let's see another question. Let's see here. Okay. Taylor is asking, I have hung flags and pictures of diverse families, but how can I connect to more cultures in my classroom through more than just decor, such as stories, meal times, routines, or large or small group? So we kind of already started with routines, but what about, you know, like meal times and things like that?
Sure. Meal times is a really great way just to build a relationship with anyone, right? So
that's true.
I know we have a phrase back at home. It's like, how do you get to know someone when you want to get to know them, right? You give them some food, give them some of your food, and then you learn more about like, oh, are they sweet tooth? Are they going to add more sugar? Are they going to add salt? You know, are they going to add this? And it was always a fun game that my late grandparents played with me, and they just was like, I learned a lot by you just sitting and being with us. And so I was like, oh, so here's us sitting with each other. And so there's a few things on display in front of us. Yeah. We have a lot of the pieces are of corn. And so Lonnie picked up like a colorful corn. It has white and blue. We have red corn. Yes, we have the blue corn here. This one's blue. And then we have the red corn. So you see the red corn has more of like blue colors in it. But if you see it, there are hints of different pieces. And so what's great about this for preschool kiddos is many different flags of indigenous peoples and I think countries. You find out what's in their community by just Googling what's their what's a part of their traditional foods. And so the Navajo people really, really embrace and move a lot of pieces around corn and our sheep, our mutton, and our lamb. You know, like we use a lot of those pieces. For the Jicarilla people, we also do corn as well. And the fun fact, fun history fact about that, where you can go on a tangent with kiddos, is where did that corn come from, right? Is it natural to the land? And so a lot of the corn that Navajos got back then were through trade, you know, and so they got seeds and they were able to change them. So corn nowadays doesn't look like the corn that Paloma just showed and that we have, you know, lots of corn. Right. So our corn are really manufactured, right? They're made really large and big.
Much bigger.
And the kernels are definitely not as closer together. Some Navajo corn are spaced apart. And so, you know, when you look back at what type of foods you have in those communities, you can definitely play with it. So how would I do this as an infant and toddler teacher? What I would do is I would probably put little Ziploc bags, because they like to put things inside their mouth, right? So you could do a few things with it. One would be I'd make sure that Ziploc bag is sealed really well. Sometimes I do a double Ziploc bag. And what I did for my kiddo is because they're teeth a lot, so I would get a little bit of water and mix it with the white corn or the yellow corn. Just mix it, kind of make it a paste, and then freeze it. And then you freeze it, and then when it comes out, the baby's just going to gnaw on it.
That's a great idea.
Wow.
You know, just gnaw on it. And what I did for my little kiddo is you can make blue corn mush out of the blue corn. It's called blue cornmeal. In Spanish, it's called atole.
Atole, yes.
So Navajos, we love atole, and so do Jicarillas, love blue corn mush. And so, but what I did for my infant baby is made a little side dish for her, dipped just a little washcloth in there, and then freeze it, bring it back out, and it's hard and it's crunchy. And she's just going to mash it around on her teeth. It feels good for the gums.
Wow.
And it's also like a little food. It's like a little paste. So for infants and tots, that's what you could do. For preschool kiddos, because they're learning how to, you know, go through all those pieces with science and things like that, you can have them make their own tortillas out of white corn. Like a really fun activity.
Love that.
They could all do it with small group, large group, however. But with but how I used it.
Masa would be fun.
Yes. And you know what? It's so good because when everybody has it, what I did in my classroom, I made a little tub and I brought it in and I was like, okay, here's this activity, guys, is what we're going to do. Yeah. We're going to make, you know, tamales, but they're not, you know, they're not going to have any filling inside there, like meat wise. And I was like, but the cook said she was willing to cook it for us. So the kids would all get in. You have to wash your hands before you get in. And they're in there kneading it. And I was like, all right, your time's up. And they're like, oh, I want to go some more. And I was like, but you had to say good things in it, right?
Oh,
you couldn't be in there and you couldn't have negative thoughts. And so the plan was, I was like, you have to say like, I'm going to eat you good. You know, you're going to fill my tummy well, you know. And some kids really got in there. They're like, yes, you know, like, and like I had to pull their
start talking to my food like that.
Yeah, you're all, yes, it's so good. And and you know what? Your tummy and your body, you know, it reacts to it. So when it does taste it, it's like delicious, you know? And so we were able to make that a snack, and the kids were able to come back and they were like, this is so good. And I was like, look at all those thoughts. You made everybody happy, you know?
And what a rich activity with everything that it entails.
Right?
Yeah, and it's opening the door again to other cultures, right? Because, you know, if you're making tamales, for example, then all of the Hispanic children can say, yeah, I make tamales, or I've had them before. Even, you know, the different types of tamales. My husband's Cuban. They make tamales, but like sweet tamales. And so it's very different. And they put like pieces of pork in it. And so it's an opportunity.
Sweet with pork?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is interesting. They're okay.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say, we have the sweet ones, but there's raisins in there and anise.
No, they're still pork. But it's not like super, super sweet. It's just that they use sweeter corn, and so it's interesting. It's different, and it's an opportunity for families to learn. Like, oh, I make this, but not exactly the same way as you, or I've never made that. I use corn for a different reason. You know, I roast my corn, I grill my corn, or I have corn off the cob with butter. Like, there's so many ways to have conversations about something as simple as food, and it starts with you know, an educator bringing in something from their own culture. I love that. I always say, like, for my programs, you should be authentic and share who you are and the things you like. If you play music at home, play the music for your students. If you have a culture that you can bring in, you know, examples of different types of corn, it really blossoms into such beautiful learning. And, you know, it reminds me that you are also wearing something special. Do you want to share a little bit about what you're wearing and all of the different things?
Yes. And I want to hear about your wear. I just wanted to say also going home with, because I'm assuming they got to take it home, right? Or they ate it.
They ate it.
Because I think also
it was gone.
you took it. As a parent, I think it would be so cool. What, you made tamales at school today? That's so crazy.
I know, right?
But I didn't mean to take us off track. We do definitely want to know about your, in Spanish, I would say vestimenta. Because it gives it a little bit more respect. Because this isn't a vestimenta. This is, you know, an outfit. But a vestimenta would be, like it's part of your culture. And it's, I don't know, for me.
Heightens the importance.
Yes.
That makes sense. That's cool.
But yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I am wearing a Navajo outfit, and what I have are just, it's adorned with jewels, my silver all around, and I have my bracelets, and I have my this little purple headband, hair tie, or scarf. Sorry, scarf is attached to my belt. It represents my knife. So I was told by one of my friends, she was like, "Yeah, wear a scarf right there. That way, because you're a woman, you can't wear a knife out in public,
right?
But it represents that piece that's where it would be."
Wow.
What a great idea.
Okay. Yeah.
Very symbolic.
And I have my purse.
And it's beautiful too.
My purse that I carry on me. And normally what's inside your purse is like your personal effects, of course, but you also have like your traditional medicines that are on you. And so I actually do have a traditional medicine attached to my belt here, which is really cool, is that these my sash belt has a lot of various needs, or has a lot of various pieces that it can hold. So usually holds my medicine here. If I have something that I need to tie on, you know, like if I'm out, I'll tie it on, you know, something extra hands, if you will, extra bag.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
And then as far as for my jewelry goes, I'm wearing a traditional squash blossom, and then also a squash necklace. And then, of course, my pin up here at the top. But then I also have my hair tied up in a Navajo bun down in the back. So my hair is tied up all together. And that way nothing a part of me is flailing or, you know, out of place and things like that. So this represents my whole Navajo culture. I also am wearing my kensop, my shoes, my moccasins down at the bottom.
Oh, those are awesome.
Yeah, so for my Jicarilla people, though, we do have different attire. As you can see in the back here, I have my my traditional buckskin, which I wear often, as you can see. So I went through cleaning last year, and already I need to go through another cleaning.
It's well loved.
Yes,
How
it's
difficult
well
to clean it must be.
It takes time, and you do a lot of it with clay. White clay. So it's a real like hard cleaning that you got to get down, and you got to scrub it out. But what I was told by my grandparents on those ones and relatives is that, you know, you're putting in the hard work of showing representation of yourself, like I'm ready for the day, you know. And so it just needs another good hard cleaning to go through. But it is 2 pieces. It's made out of buckskin. And the top is my cape. And if you notice, you'll see the blue and white down here. And when you see other natives that have like similar buckskin attire, you won't see them. If they have the blue and white, that means that person, the people are Hickory Apache people. So if you see different beads around, that's their tribal bead.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you see a lot of the blue and white down here, that signifies that it is that they are a part of the certain tribe.
Oh, wow. So it's recognizable.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
And what an amazing opportunity for more open-ended questions, right?
Yes.
With students to say, well, what are you wearing today? And why are you wearing this? And, you know, and it just gives the opportunity for so much learning.
Yes. And I think thank you, Lonnie, for bringing that up. It brought up a conversation I had when I was an educator. I had a kiddo. She was the same one who gave me the little maestra card. And she was like, you wearing an outfit like my grandma would wear at home. Oh. And I was like, where's home? You know, in Mexico. And I was like, wow. And she also has an Orno oven, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, see how similar those pieces are, you know. And Navajos don't have an Orno oven. We have an oven that we dig into the ground, and then we put all our foods inside of there, and then we cover it all back up and cook. That's how we do it. But I know a lot of Pueblo people in this area, they have a lot of Orno ovens, and they make the fabulous oven breads, right?
Oh, yeah.
The breads that come up like that. So, you know, like she was able to make that connection. And the more connections we had throughout the year with her, the more I had with her mom and her siblings, the more that I realized, look how similar we are, but yet, you know, we're two worlds apart. And how can we, you know, do more, you know? And so just stay, you know, don't overcomplicate things.
Yeah. And I think that's the one we were talking about at the beginning, the being intimidated by it. For me, it's more of I don't want to be disrespectful. And obviously I wouldn't do anything, you know, grab the dress and clean with it or anything like that. But I also just want to give as much respect as I could, and I wouldn't want to be disrespectful in any way. You mentioned earlier putting Navajo words, you know, if you look them up on Google. I've suggested this to my teachers before, and some of the things that I get back is, what if it's wrong? Sometimes when you put it in Spanish, it's wrong, and then what if, you know, there was a Navajo person that comes in and gets upset that I'm not doing it. I say, well, that's a perfect opportunity for you to ask, can you help me and correct it? Or, you know.
Just ask.
Just
bring
ask.
it back to our episode of show.
But I think it is that being intimidated and being more of a, I hope I'm not doing anything wrong or being disrespectful by, you saw me touching everything just now. I was about to give people that are listening and not watching, hear this corn.
Some ASMR.
Yes. But,
not just asking, but it's an opportunity to reach out to your community, right? So regardless of if we're talking about, you know, a native culture or we're talking about a Spanish culture or a language you don't understand, you can ask parents, you can ask coworkers, you can, you know, reach out, you can talk to a consultant if you have one, and really just try and reach out and see who can give you more information, because it's okay to not know. You know, and it's okay to tell your students, I don't know, but I will try and find out.
Yes.
100%.
And I, you know, in addition to that, like just a good story for educators and knowing that is, I had my kiddo, my son, who was nonverbal because we spoke nothing but Hickory or nothing but Navajo to him at home. So when he went to school as a 1-year-old, the educator was like, you know, you're gonna have to do a referral, you know, and all these things. And I was like, hold on. And I was like, how are you communicating with him? Is it all English? And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh, there it is. And I was like, you know what, let me give you some survival words. And I was, so I went to him and I was like, Shiaj, come here. And so I said, Shiaj, hako. So
even how you refer to him, probably his name, right?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say Camden. I would say Shiaj, you know, so because that's my son, you know. And so he came over to me, sat down, and she was like, that right there. She's
He's
like,
a whole other child all of a sudden.
She was like, usually I'm like, Camden, come here, you know. And he's like, you know, it's not my name, you know. It's Shiaj, ma'am, you know. And I told the lady, I was like, you know what? Here, I'll make you a I sent her little video clips of me saying commands, you know, to him in Navajo. And then I would say it in English. So I started saying it in Navajo, and then I said it in English. And so he went up to his educator, the teacher, one day, and he was like, he told her, teacher, he's a Miss Carol, he's a Chach. He's a headache, Chach. And she was like, what is that? And I was like, it means he needs a poop. You know, like, he's got a poop coming. And she was
That's
like,
a good word to learn for teachers.
Yeah. And she was like, oh my gosh. And so I had the recording. And so I'd ask him. And then he was like, no, I don't know. He's on no. And then after a while, she would not have to play it so often because she knew. Iya means eat. Mm-hmm. She started picking up Navajo words.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And that's going to benefit, obviously, your son, but other students if the need comes across. And I think this, for me, brings up the need for ask questions when you first start off the school year. Mm-hmm. Ask cultural questions to learn more about your students and what's their home language? Mm-hmm. What are things that they do to feel safe? What are things that they do when they, feel scared or angry? What is it that helps comfort them? All these types of questions are so beneficial so that you don't feel lost in the middle of the year and you're like having to seek out guidance from a parent because you've already taken that time to ask. Right. So I think that's a good, reminder to have some set questions to help you get to know your families more. And then you can say, okay, you speak this language. I don't know this language. Can you, bring some of that into the classroom for us this year? Things like that.
Yeah. Getting to know your families too. It reminded me of a story, but I always used to tell people there was a commercial when I first moved to the United States. There was a commercial that was really funny because they put me in a lower grade because they said I probably couldn't handle it because of the language. And I remember there was this commercial, this kid, Guillermo, and the teacher is telling the parent they don't pay attention. He doesn't listen to me. I call him, and then they show the clip, and she goes, Guillermo. Guillermo. And here's Guillermo. Guillermo. That wasn't it. It was not his name, And we had a coworker. She's Chinese, and she told me the story that happened to her son, and she had to teach the teacher how to say his name. That they called him at home because that was his name. And that made a huge difference. And then going back on something you said about, or that we were talking about, in New Mexico or in my classroom, I only have kids that speak Spanish from Mexican background, let's say. We're in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Like, talk about going outside and you get all these cultures and all these Native American cultures, this Hispanic cultures, among everything else, right? But we're in New Mexico. It should be so easy to get information. It's just maybe taking that step of asking.
Yes,
definitely.
And in addition to that, take care of their names. You're a caretaker as educators we are caretakers of educators of learning their names and saying it correctly and spelling it correctly. And so it's not you're adding that value to them of I see you, right? And so when someone says your name wrong, and you're like, no, that's not it. You correct right away. And so like my kiddos, my oldest, her name is Aisha. And so if we were to put it in Navajo, her name would be Aisha Ba. And that's how we came out with Aisha. And so in Navajo, that's my girl. That's what it means. Oh. So she's our first. So she's like, that's my girl, as a mom, like Aisha Ba, and that's my girl, Okay. And so, so just knowing like the history of families, like where their names come from, getting to know a family of like, what do you do differently? And I think sometimes when families say, well, we don't have a tradition, we don't have a ritual, I think that's the part where you're like, well, what's your favorite food?
Right.
And then
or where does your name come from? It doesn't have to have like this hidden meaning, but it could be like a special way that you came across it. It's like my name comes from my dad's best friend who passed away when they were 21. And he was like, all right, next, when I have a kid, I'm going to name that child Lonnie. And I was named after a guy. And I always tell students, oh, you were named after a guy? I'm like, well, yeah, because my name can work for both.
Yeah.
It's spelled differently, though. And so it's not culturally relevant, but it's still part of my family to know that I have a meaningful name. Yeah. And does your name mean anything, Paloma?
Well, it means dove, but I'm always having to explain to people when I moved to the United States that it's as if the word brown and coffee is the same word, café.
Yeah.
But my mom, if your mom didn't name you Brown, she named you Coffee. Why would people call you Brown, right? So for Paloma, it's dove and pigeon. And a lot of people just to be funny, call me Pigeon, But it's it's not my name. My mom named me Dove.
Yeah.
But my mom says since she was a kid, she's like, I'm going to have a little girl and her name's going to be Paloma. And that's, what's always been her dream. So I'm my mom's dream.
Yeah.
No, not to brag.
And that's what it is. What makes it so special is that, like you've been saying this whole time, Stacie, is keep it simple.
Yes.
You can teach culture in the classroom with a simple conversation of where does your name come from?
Yeah.
What kind of food do you eat? What do you make at home? How do you dress at home? Yeah. All these different things are super simple and yet so profound and meaningful.
Right. And I think, just wrapping up the names. So my name is not traditional in Navajo or Jicarilla. My name comes from a bell racer.
Oh, wow.
My dad was a rodeo guy. So he still is a hardcore rancher. Shout out to you, Dad. And, but he loved the whole, essence of that life. And that was how I was brought up, around ranching and a cowgirl way of life. And so he was like, no, her name is Stacie, So I was like, oh, thank you. It was that or Crystal, and I have a sister-in-law who's Crystal, and I have a few cousins that are named Crystal. So I was like, that would have been one more, but I missed it.
I do have a couple of Native American friends named Crystal.
Yeah,
so it's a popular name.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's a natural stone element that we use, for guidance and for protection, things like that. So
but you're Stacie.
But mine, I'm a barrel racer.
And we wouldn't see you any other way.
Yes, I know. That's
when
true.
People say, what if your name was this? I almost got named this, but it's like, no, I can only see you with how I know you.
Yes.
And, Stacie, you brought up earlier this idea that sometimes families do say, and or even teachers could say, well, we don't really have culture, or we don't really have any traditions. But if we kind of shift some of our ideas of what culture is, it can be traditions, it can be, because even in a classroom, I always say you create a classroom culture.
Right.
The bonds that you create and the things that you do and the routine you have is your culture in the classroom. So culture can kind of be shifted a little bit, and it can maybe help some families who aren't really sure what is their culture. Well, it's what you do in the holidays. It's how you cook. It's, do you have family dinners, and do your kids help you cook? It's all the things that we do as families and as people. That's our culture. And sometimes it doesn't have necessarily a name behind it, but it's still culture. And there's so many ways to bring it into the classroom.
Yes. And, in addition to that piece too, we have a lot of subcultures that are going on, right, that we don't talk about. But it is a culture. We just witnessed the Super Bowl happen, right? And there's a huge football culture, NFL culture. Then you have the college culture, and then the high school culture of sports, not just football, but any sports. And so,
and it's very different. You're right, because college football and pro football completely
very
different
cultures.
So you're right. That's a great example.
So, and if you have a dad who's like, oh, Thanksgiving, all we watch is football, and you're
that's
like,
my dad.
I watch Friends during Thanksgiving. Football and Friends.
Games.
But that right there, what do you know about it? How are you getting them interested? How maybe this kid wants to do football, but doesn't know the basic plays or basic, pieces. And you're like, well, in order for you to play, you got to eat right, keep it simple, right? Go back to the basics of stretching. Well, let's communicate. Let's, so everything all comes back to, the person really knowing themselves and then being able to say, I'm okay with where I'm at. And let me help you identify what that is. Because it's not, you're not going to get that infant taught or preschool, pre-K kiddo right then and there, everything, but at least you're going to give him something, right?
Yeah.
And that something might be.
Stacie, do you do you see stereotypes in the classroom, like stereotypes of Native Americans when you see that?
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the big one that always comes forth is like Thanksgiving when they do the feathers. And it's always so hard and challenging when I see that in the classroom. And then I just ask them like, well, what tribe is this? And I was like, I'm not trying to be facetious and I'm not trying to be in any way, but in New Mexico, our people do not, like in all general, like don't wear headdresses.
Right.
We don't run around like with a bonnet on our head. And I was like, do you know the history of the bonnet? And they were like, no, it's just an art activity that our curriculum bought for us, and they sent it to us. And I'm like, wow. Well,
Getting educated.
There's a curriculum there. And then that's when I share with them like, well, here in New Mexico, Thanksgiving, you really want to talk about what is appreciation. And when a kiddo was sent home with the feathers on the head, like a teacher can strew it too, like some of the day, well, it's a turkey, and you're like,
sure.
Yeah, well,
okay.
That's right. We have to make sure that we are appreciating culture. And when we talked about how we're not sure about being offensive or anything, that includes stereotypes and making sure that if you're not exactly sure if what you're teaching is authentic and meaningful, then take some of that out. Sometimes those art activities aren't necessary and you could just keep it simple and teach something like corn. And honestly, they might enjoy it way more, And so it's asking questions, it's confirming and making sure things are okay and checking in. What is the meaning behind having them create this art project and wearing these feathers versus the meaning of everyone talking about the way that they eat corn? There could be so many, even just if we go back to the Thanksgiving example, what do you eat at Thanksgiving? That could be the lesson instead. And then it's way more meaningful. My grandma always made her sweet potatoes. Now I'm married to my husband. He loves his mom's sweet potatoes. They're totally different. His has marshmallows. Mine's don't. I don't like his. He doesn't like mine. So do we make both at Thanksgiving? Yes, we sure do. I eat mine and he eats his. But you don't realize how important something like sweet potatoes are. But I'm like, my grandma made those. Like, that's important to me. My grandma made this meal. I needed it to be the same. And then I realized, we can combine a little bit. But it's like this idea that, we can keep things simple if we want to talk about holidays and it's still meaningful. So I feel like our lessons today is through connection from culture, we keep it simple. And if you keep it simple, you keep it more authentic.
yes.
There you go.
Yeah. And like that right there, just keep it simple. That way it's authentic. If you don't know, ask someone. Your other fellow educators come with also a wealth of knowledge that sometimes I think we take for granted inside the classroom, right? We have a lead teacher, right? And we have our support staff that's there, but sometimes when maybe your lead is burnt out or whatever, and they're like, I just need an activity. Can you help me? Hey, there's nothing wrong with asking for that help, reaching out to each other in that, because your community is as strong as you make it, right?
100%.
So,
I love that.
But in addition to the corn pieces, with food wise, you can have an activity where they color them. And thank you, Lonnie. This here came from Hawaii, actually. It is not Navajo and Jicarilla Apache. And this just goes to show of what trade looks like in our people. I got these when I was in high school and when I was out in Hawaii. And when I went to Florida, a Hawaiian came over and she graced me with it. She wanted me to have something of hers. And she was like, anytime you wear your outfit, you know, that'd be great if you could put this on.
Oh, how
And so I always carry it with me. Yeah. And that's just something about
what are these made out of?
They're nuts.
Oh,
the Hawaii
nut
nuts.
shells.
The nuts from.
So for those just listening, they're strung together, light brown as well as a dark brown.
Yep. And what this represents, thank you, Lonnie, for bringing it up, is it just represents what we do with culture, right? I am Navajo and JICARILLA Apache, and I went out to Florida, I went out to Hawaii, and a few women came up to me and gave these to me and said, whenever you're dressed the way you are, I want you to know that we love it. Mm-hmm. And so carry these with you. They'll protect you. And I think that's just what we do with culture, right? Mm-hmm. We make it in the classroom. And we don't know which child, what family is going to walk away with the knowledge of this is now how I'm going to move forward, you know? And so I think that just gives it a good segue of like, I'm a part of you now. So the teachings that you got today, yes, the connection, yes, we're infinite. I'm always a part of you. And Navajo people, JICARILLA people, just giving some simple lesson like corn, coloring corn, finding out a little bit more. Reach out to your resources here in, you know, there's Albuquerque. You can reach out to the Public Culture Center. You have other Navajo communities that can answer questions. And if you just have a question, you know, reach out to the podcast folks, Lonnie and Paloma.
Our podcast email.
Yes, podcast email. And that way they can get those questions and we can get some answers with them. You also have like a great leadership up in Santa Fe who's willing to give you guys in the right direction of who you need to connect to. So there's a lot of resources we have out there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, like Stacie said, please email us your questions in the field. That's how we're able to send, you know, these guided conversations into depth. And really, we want it for all of you. It's beneficial for all of you to share your questions, your concerns, your thoughts, or share a celebration, share a story that you want us to be able to highlight as well. That's okay. It doesn't always have to be a question. And so I honestly thank you so much, Stacie, for joining us today. I think this was such a powerful conversation. Paloma and I love talking about culture and diversity. We probably could do it 500 different ways. Yeah. And each time it will be turning into my favorite episode. Yeah. Yes. And so I think that this was a great new perspective for us.
Definitely. Yes. We got a lot of information. We got a lot of cool stuff that you showed us and you taught us. But at the same time, Lonnie's right. We can keep talking about this. And it's just also, imagine, I'm sure this is how kids feel. We learned so much and it's so much fun. And I, can't wait to tell my mom about stuff. So I feel like that little, kid maestra. Yeah. I'm going to go tell my mom about what you just told me. It's super exciting to learn about new cultures and being able to now thinking about, some of the books that you brought. I want to make sure that we have them at the toy library and that we have these available because they're so beautiful. And I'll make sure that I have these books also, whether you're listening, I'll have it on the information there, or if you're watching, I will also have a list of these books so that everybody can look for them, enjoy them, hopefully come to the toy libraries and have them so if we can get a set. And are we going to do the
Beauty Way
stretch, right? So Stacie's going to walk us through.
Yeah. We can sit. That's fine. Okay. So what we're going to do.
You're okay with sitting?
Yeah. Okay. So we can do, it's called the Beauty Way stretch. And this is from the Navajo culture. And it's great because it sets intention for the day. And so if you want to add this into your lesson plan, you can put the Beauty Way stretch, parens Navajo. And it's just a simple stretch. So what you're going to do is just sit nice and tall. You can close your eyes if you want. You can keep them open. Take a good deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And then the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to raise your arms above you and reach as far as you can because that's beauty above you. And you're just going to think of good thoughts, think of good things after you get done with beauty above you. You bring it down to your side. Keep breathing. And then you're going to go beauty below you. So you'll touch your toes. Really get that good stretch in there. Continue breathing. Beauty below you. All the earth elements underneath you. It's going to radiate through you. All right. You're going to come back into the middle. And you're going to reach your arms out to the side. And just stretch as far as you possibly can. And beauty on the side of you. So anyone's around you, your environment, it's going to all come into a good way with you. Awesome. Then you're going to bring it forward in front of you, reaching as far as you can. Beauty in front of you. For whatever the day has and set in store for you, you're going to gravitate all those good things. And if there's a challenge, you're going to overcome that. You're going to learn from that. And then you're going to go reach and far behind you and reach as far as you can, because all those learned knowledge that you learned from maybe mistakes, from the challenges, from the success, from the celebrations, all that beauty is coming back into your brain, into your being. Come back. And then you can do one final good circle motion from your head all the way down to your sides, as many as you want. And that is beauty all around you.
Ooh,
yes.
Love that.
Yes. So in Navajo, that is the beauty way. There is a song about it. You can YouTube it. It's called Navajo Beauty Way. And you can listen to the words that are said. You can listen to the song that is sung. But yeah, it's just a really great stretch you can do. You can do it with infants and tots as they're laying down, getting up. It's a great activity because most teachers do yoga anyways, stretches in the classroom. So this is just one great stretch of putting that intention in there. What is the stretch for? And so like you're touching your toes and you're radiating all those good things through your feet, through your hands, through your whole environment around you.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing everything. The beauty way is another strategy out of many that you shared with us today. So thank you so much. This is Learning with Lobos.
Yes, this was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your culture. And teachers can see it wasn't scary. We asked questions. I was super curious. And this was awesome. So hope you guys learn and some information and you can get more resources. But this has been season 2, episode 3. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.
See you. Hagonet. Enjoy downtown. Hey, yeah, hiya, na, na. 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 Oh, hey, oh, hey, young. Hey,